It started with a list. That's how most of my errands began. Mom hurt her wrist pruning the lilac bushes too early in the season, and suddenly it was on me to grab everything for her spring garden. Potting soil, tomato cages, peat moss, gloves, a new watering wand. The usual suspects when South Carolina decided to skip spring and go straight into summer. I didn't mind. It was Saturday morning, bright but not too hot, and the Walmart down on Greenfield Road was only 10 minutes away. I remember double-checking the list while sitting in the driver's seat, hearing my mom's voice in my head reminding me not to forget the slug pellets. Funny how she always cared more about her dahlias than herself. She had a splint on her left wrist and was still talking about getting the rose trellis painted before next weekend. I parked in a spot halfway down the lot, not too close, but not in the Wild West either. It was decently busy, the kind of morning crowd you expect. Older couples, moms with toddlers, a few high schoolers still in pajamas, probably forced out of bed by their parents. I pushed an empty cart toward the gardening section, already imagining the satisfying crunch of gravel under mulch bags and that weird plasticky smell all the outdoor tools always had. The store was uneventful, boring even. I grabbed everything, even a new pair of clippers my mom hadn't asked for but definitely needed, then stood in line behind a woman arguing over expired coupons. One cashier working. Classic. When I got out to my car, the sun had risen just enough to make you squint without sunglasses. I popped the trunk and started loading everything in. 3 heavy bags of potting mix first, then the smaller items. I remember standing up to stretch my back and hearing footsteps behind me. I didn't think anything of it at first, just another shopper heading to their car. But when I turned, instinctively more than anything, I locked eyes with a man I didn't recognize. He looked like he'd just come from a jog. Late 20s, maybe early 30s, short buzzed hair, tank top, athletic shorts, earbuds in. He was tan and lean, with the kind of expression you see on people in passing. Polite, unreadable. "Hey," I said, just being friendly. I didn't think twice. Then I bent down to lift the last bag of compost into the trunk. That's when I heard it. "Was it you?" I paused, half expecting to see someone else nearby. Maybe he was talking to someone behind me. I turned around again. "Sorry?" He was closer now, smiling, but not in a warm way. His head was tilted a little, like he was trying to solve a riddle with my face. "Was it you?" he repeated. I blinked. "Was what me?" He laughed a little, short, sharp. "You know." I chuckled awkwardly, brushing my hands off on my jeans. "I think you've got the wrong person." He didn't move, just stood there, still smiling like he was sure I was lying. I turned to close the trunk, not wanting to drag out a weird encounter. I just finished when I heard his footsteps again. Quicker this time, more deliberate. I looked up, and he was suddenly on the other side of my car, rounding it toward me. "You got me transferred," he spat. "You did this." His tone had changed completely. The smile stayed, but it was twisted, strained at the edges. I froze. There was something off about the way he said it. Not confusion, not anger, but absolute certainty, like I was a jigsaw piece that had finally clicked into place in his brain. What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know you." "Don't do that." His voice rose. "Don't pretend." His whole body tensed. The friendly jogger posture was gone, replaced by something erratic and coiled. His jaw worked, clenching and unclenching. People were walking through the parking lot nearby, but no one seemed to notice us. Just another conversation, just another pair of strangers. "I swear I think you've got me confused with someone else," I said. I took a step back, bumping into my car. "You think I don't remember your face?" he barked. "You were the one in the office. You had that smug look like it was your business. Now I don't have a job. Now I'm out here, and you're loading fucking flower food into your car like nothing happened." I stared. "I don't even work in an office." His expression twisted into something I still can't quite describe. His smile vanished. His eyes went wide. He raised his voice to a full scream, spit flying from his mouth. "You did this!" People stopped walking. A few glanced over. Some turned away. A couple just stood there, mouths open. And then he pulled out a baton. An honest-to-God extendable baton, the kind security guards carry. He flicked it out with a sharp snap, the metal rod locking into place with a sickening click. My stomach dropped straight through the asphalt. I ran. I didn't think. I just bolted around the car, dodging the open passenger door, screaming for help. "Someone call 911!" I shouted. I glanced back and saw him sprinting after me, baton raised. His legs churned like a machine. His face was red. No, purple. And he wasn't yelling words anymore, just sounds, screeches, gibberish. It wasn't anger anymore, it was madness. People stood frozen. A mom with a stroller pulled her kid close. A teenager stepped behind a pickup truck. Nobody moved to help. Except one. A security guard, not from Walmart, but from the movie theater at the edge of the lot, came sprinting across the asphalt like a linebacker. He tackled the guy mid-swing, trying to wrestle the baton out of his hand, but the attacker swung wildly, catching him in the ribs, the shoulder, maybe the face. The guard stumbled, then grabbed him from behind, trying to drag him down. I kept running. I didn't stop until I reached the next row of parked cars. My lungs burned. My hands shook. More shouts. Sirens in the distance. The man threw the guard off with a strength that didn't seem possible. He turned in circles, shouting nonsense, batting at the air like he saw invisible enemies. When the first officer arrived and pointed a taser at him, I expected it to be over. But it wasn't. The darts hit him, the wires curled tight, the officer shouted something, but the man didn't fall. He barely flinched. That's when the second officer drew his sidearm. Thankfully, they didn't shoot. Another officer flanked him and managed to get behind. It took 3 of them to subdue him, and even then, he fought like a wild animal, screaming, snarling, drooling, like he wasn't even there. Later, I sat on the curb with a bottle of water someone gave me. One of the officers crouched beside me. His face was pale. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "We've been looking for him for 2 days," he said. "Name's Eric, 29. He's not well." He didn't have to say more. I already knew. Apparently, Eric had been suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and hadn't taken his meds in over a week. He'd had a breakdown at his job, a tech support center or something, and accused a coworker of getting him transferred. He'd run off before his family could get him into a hospital. That morning, he thought I was that coworker. I don't know if we even looked alike. In the weeks after, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept checking behind me in parking lots. I kept seeing his face, smiling and screaming at the same time. I even started to feel guilty. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I saw the broken person underneath the violence. He hadn't been chasing me. He was running from a version of reality only he could see. I hope he got help. I really do. But I also know if I'd turned my back 1 second too long, I might not be here to say so. I always thought the worst part of working the late shift at Walmart was the customers. Turns out it wasn't. The real fear didn't start until I was off the clock, standing alone at that godforsaken bus stop 2 blocks down the road, waiting for my Uber in the middle of the night. I wish I could say this story was exaggerated, or that I dreamed it, or that I'm just paranoid. But that would make it easier to sleep at night. And I haven't slept well since. My name's Emily Carson. I worked the closing shift at the Walmart on Bayview and Lyle, right on the edge of Jacksonville. Though around here it's just called The Edge. It's a strange place to work. During the day it's full of families, retirees, and impatient moms who think yelling gets them discounts. But once the sun goes down and we lock the sliding doors, it changes. The vibe gets heavier, like something's pressing in. I worked in general merchandise, but at night, we all did a little of everything. Zoning, returns, even cleanup in the bathrooms if the janitor called off again, which he often did. No one liked the night shift. You had to be part insomniac and part lunatic to last longer than a month. I was on my third. I stayed because the money was better and because I didn't have many other options. But I never stayed a second longer than I had to. It was 1:07 a.m. on a Thursday when I clocked out. The closing manager, Derek, gave me the usual half nod, and I waved at Marcy from pharmacy as I slipped out the employee exit. The parking lot was almost empty, save for a couple of beat-up sedans and a lone shopping cart someone had left turned sideways in a handicap space. I pulled out my phone, thumbed into the Uber app, and lit a cigarette. I didn't even really smoke until I started working nights, but something about the stillness, the hum of the lights, the stale air, the emptiness, made me crave that burn in my throat. Walmart was strict about smoke-free premises. If I lit up in the parking lot, I'd risk a write-up. Do it more than once? Fired. So I always walked down Holcomb Avenue past the auto shop, then cut over to the 72nd Street bus stop. No buses ran after 10, but the bench was clean and always empty. It had this one flickering overhead light that buzzed just loud enough to keep the silence from swallowing me whole. My Uber was 6 minutes away. I sat down and scrolled social media, not really reading anything. Then I saw him. At first, I thought he was just another guy finishing his shift, maybe from the gas station nearby. He came from the direction of St. Clair Road, walking slowly, hands in pockets, head slightly down, hoodie up despite the muggy air. But the second I saw him, something twisted in my gut. I've gotten that feeling before, while walking alone or when a car drives too slowly past, but this was different. This was heavier. My whole body tensed without my permission. I told myself not to be dramatic. You work nights. You're bound to cross paths with weird people. But as he got closer, I saw that his gait was off. Like he was choosing each step, almost like he wasn't sure how to walk casually. He passed me by about 5 feet. I didn't look up, just stared at my phone like I hadn't noticed him. But then he stopped, didn't keep walking, didn't glance around. Just stopped and leaned against the glass of the bus stop shelter like he was waiting for a bus. No bus was coming. I checked my phone again. 4 minutes till the Uber. I turned down my brightness, not wanting to draw any more attention. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. But I could feel him looking at me. Not just watching, calculating. Like he was working something out in his head. Measuring. I stole a glance. Just a flash. Enough to see that he was younger than I thought, maybe early 30s. His hood had fallen slightly and his face was too smooth for someone who looked so tired. His eyes were dark, unfocused, and fixed in my direction. I pulled my bag closer to my side and tried to keep my breath even. Then I remembered what my mom always said. If something feels wrong, don't wait for it to prove itself right. I opened the Uber app again. 2 minutes. He shifted just slightly, like he was getting ready to say something, or maybe to move. I don't know. I didn't want to find out. I stood up and took a few steps away from the bench. He didn't move at first. Then he pushed off the glass and took one step toward me. That was it. One slow, deliberate step. I turned my phone's flashlight on and aimed it at him. Not to blind him, just to see. Just to make it clear. I see you. Can I help you with something? I asked, trying to sound steady. He smiled. Not friendly, just wide. Nah, he said. You're good. He didn't move again, but the smile stayed. That's when I noticed his right hand. It had been in his hoodie pocket the whole time. Still was. I backed up another 2 steps. My heart was hammering in my throat. My Uber turned the corner at the end of the block. Headlights cut through the darkness like a godsend. I practically sprinted to the curb. Just before I opened the back door, he said it. You're lucky, he muttered. Loud enough for me to hear, but not loud enough for the driver. I paused. What? He grinned wider. I said, you're lucky, girl. I stared at him for a second too long. My driver, Carlos, said, everything okay? I didn't answer. Just got in and slammed the door. Carlos was talkative. Usually I hated that, but that night I didn't mind. His voice grounded me. I didn't tell him what happened. I didn't know how to explain it. The guy didn't touch me, didn't threaten me, didn't technically do anything. But I knew he had something in mind. I just didn't stick around long enough to find out what. I didn't go to that bus stop again. I got a nicotine patch and started letting Carlos pick me up at the back lot. But the fear didn't end there. 3 nights later, I got off early. Clocked out around midnight. Carlos was 10 minutes out, so I waited in the break room. Derek was on his phone. Marcy had already gone home. I was alone. I heard a knock at the back door. 3 quick raps. It was the employee exit. Nobody ever knocked there. It was locked from the outside. I peeked at the camera feed behind the break room desk. The screen was black, glitching. I stood there frozen until Carlos called. I ran out the front doors instead. Never looked back. The next week, someone left a cigarette butt exactly where I used to sit. I hadn't told anyone where I smoked. It was the same brand I used. People think horror is about ghosts and shadows, but it's not. Horror is about the moment you realize you're being watched, not by some demon or monster, but by a human being who's been thinking about you, choosing a time, waiting for a moment. The guy didn't need to attack me. He just needed to let me know he could have. That's what I live with now. That knowledge. That someone like him is still out there, waiting for someone else to not be so lucky. In retail, the chaos doesn't always come from customers yelling over expired coupons or toddlers throwing tantrums in aisle 7. Sometimes the scariest thing is how fast a normal day can twist into something you'll never forget. It was January when it happened. I'd been working second shift at the Walmart on Bellevue Road just outside Monroe, Louisiana. I was on from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m., 5 days a week, trying to save up enough to get out of my parents' house and maybe start nursing school. Most nights were routine, zoning shelves, answering dumb questions, avoiding creeps. But that Tuesday turned into something else entirely. I remember the date because the weather had finally dipped below freezing that week, and everyone in town was acting like we were prepping for the apocalypse. The store was packed earlier that day. People grabbing bottled water, space heaters, and enough milk and bread to feed an army. By around 7 p.m., the rush had finally started dying down. That's when things got weird. I was in the home goods section fixing up the Tupperware display when I heard a voice over the walkie. "Hey, y'all seeing what's happening outside?" It was Marcus, one of the greeters. He was older, maybe late 60s, the type who always wore a vest a size too big and said sugar to everybody regardless of gender. "Got some kind of mess happening in the parking lot. 2 groups of girls. Looks like high schoolers. Might want to get AP on standby." AP meant asset protection, our version of store security. They didn't wear badges or carry anything but radios, but they were trained to spot shoplifters and intervene in certain situations. Usually they just followed sketchy people around pretending to zone shelves. I peered through the sliding glass doors near the entrance. Sure enough, about 8 or 9 teenage girls were gathered out by the cart return area. 2 separate clumps. Their body language said everything. Arms folded, bouncing on their heels, staring daggers. The kind of energy you get right before a fight breaks out. Tension. That word sticks in my mind when I think about it. The air was thick with it, but whatever that situation was, it died down within 10 minutes. One of the groups walked off toward the Wendy's down the road, and the other wandered into the store. I figured it was over. "Just a bunch of kids showing off," I said to Raina, my co-worker in housewares. She nodded. "Probably just being dramatic. You know how high school girls are?" But they weren't just dramatic. The girls who came inside weren't loud at first, just browsing. I saw one of them, dyed red hair, purple hoodie, recording them with her phone like she was vlogging. "No way I'm leaving my taser at home next time," I overheard her say, half laughing. The others giggled and kept strolling down the aisle. I rolled my eyes and went back to my cart of throw pillows. Later, I found out AP had started watching them when one of the girls allegedly slipped a spatula from the kitchenware section into her oversized tote bag. But they didn't approach. Store policy said to observe until they tried to leave. That part matters. I'll get back to it. Anyway, the store felt normal again. I forgot all about them until around 8:15. That's when I heard screaming. Real, raw screaming. Not the kind you hear from kids playing tag in the toy section. This was different. High-pitched, urgent, full of rage and something else I couldn't name at the time. Maybe fear. I was just coming back from the break room when I heard it, and I immediately went toward the front. A second group of girls, the same ones who had been outside earlier, were now back. They weren't shopping. They weren't quiet. They were standing right at the automatic doors, yelling into the store. "Where y'all at? Come out now. We know y'all in here. Don't try to hide." Marcus tried to talk to them. "Y'all need to calm down or leave. You can't just shout in here like that." They ignored him. One girl, tall, skinny, with a slick bun, started pacing back and forth near the registers. Another one kept shouting threats, stuff like, "She gonna get her teeth kicked in when I find her." I remember thinking, this is going to blow up. Someone needs to call the cops right now. Then the voice from inside came back. "I'm coming out as soon as my sister gets here." It was the girl in the purple hoodie. Before anyone could react, the girl from the door group stormed in. She walked fast, straight toward the girl in the hoodie, like she'd locked onto her. It was like watching a bomb walk toward a fuse. And then they were fighting. Not shoving, not yelling. Just full-on throwing punches in the middle of aisle 3, right near the candy racks. Customers screamed. A woman dropped a bag of Cheetos and ran with her toddler. I saw a manager running toward them yelling, "Stop, stop," but it was too late. Then something happened that didn't make sense at first. The girl with the hoodie pulled something out of her waistband, something small. I couldn't see it clearly, but it glinted under the overhead lights. In one quick move, she swung her hand low, like she was just trying to punch the other girl in the ribs. It looked almost sloppy. But the moment it landed, everything changed. The girl she hit took one step back, then another, then just kind of folded, like someone unplugged her body. I stood frozen. People were screaming again. But this time it was different. The girl who swung the object backed away fast, eyes wide, then turned and ran, full sprint, down the seasonal aisle. Her friends followed. One of them dropped her phone. Meanwhile, the girl who got hit just stared down at her chest. Then her knees buckled and she hit the floor. I didn't see the blood right away. I only heard the sound of her friends shrieking as they rushed to her. One of them tried to roll her over, and that's when I saw it. A dark red stain spreading fast across her sweatshirt. She was gasping. Someone screamed for someone to call 911. A woman started sobbing behind the jewelry counter. One of the managers was on the phone, shaking, trying to talk to dispatch. I'll never forget the sound of that girl's breathing. It was high and thin and wet. She sounded like she was trying to breathe through a straw underwater. The paramedics got there fast, but it didn't feel fast at all. They cleared the front area, moved customers out, and had us all grouped by departments while the cops arrived. I was sent back to the break room, but I could still hear the girl's friends sobbing near the entrance. One of the EMTs shouted, "We're losing her." A few minutes later, they were wheeling her out on a stretcher with a white compress over her chest. Her face was pale, lips going blue. They wouldn't say anything when we asked. They cleared the store out by 9 p.m. I was told I could leave early, so I walked home, still shaking. I kept replaying it in my head, how sudden it was, how young they all were. They didn't look a day over 15. I thought maybe she'd make it. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Then, around 9:45, I got a DM from Jasmine, one of the younger girls I worked with on weekends. "You were working tonight, right?" "Yeah," I typed back. "You saw all that?" "Girl, look at this." She sent me a Facebook Live link. I hesitated before opening it. I don't know why. Maybe I already knew it'd mess me up. The video loaded. I recognized them instantly, the same girls from inside the store. Now they were sitting in a car, phone aimed at them, laughing. "That bitch came at us," one girl shouted. "We warned her. She knew what it was. If she dead, that's on her. Ain't nobody told her to come swing first." Then the girl in the purple hoodie leaned in close to the camera. She wasn't crying. She wasn't panicking. She looked calm. I aimed for the heart. "I told y'all, don't play with me." She smiled, then laughed. I turned it off. I couldn't watch anymore. We found out the next day the girl had died before she even got to the hospital. 15 years old. Her name was Kira. She'd been a sophomore at Jefferson High. Good grades. Wanted to be a nurse. It was over nothing. A social media argument. An old rumor. Some post about someone talking trash behind someone's back. I kept thinking how none of those girls even looked grown. They looked like my little sister's classmates. Like kids you'd see taking selfies in the toy section. And yet one of them had brought a knife to Walmart and used it. I haven't been back to work since. They offered me counseling, but I haven't taken it yet. All I keep thinking about is how quickly it escalated. How real life doesn't always wait for the credits to roll. How people can bleed out between rows of plastic bowls and half-off Valentine's candy. And how you never expect it to happen, until it does. Right there in the aisles. I never liked driving at night. Not because of the darkness or the quiet, those things were actually kind of peaceful, but because something always felt off about the world after midnight. Places you knew in the daytime took on a different personality. Streetlights buzzed like they were whispering secrets. Gas stations seemed stuck in limbo. And Walmarts, those strange American landmarks of cheap convenience, felt like mausoleums for the insomniac and the unseen. I hadn't meant to be driving that late anyway. My name's Hannah Walker. I was 29 at the time and working as an assistant training coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company in Georgia. The company sent me to conferences all over the Southeast. I didn't mind. I liked the alone time, the hotel rooms, the anonymity of travel. That week, I'd been in Ashburn, Kentucky. A small, quiet town full of friendly faces and more Baptist churches than traffic lights. The conference had gone longer than expected, and instead of crashing for another night at the hotel, I decided to drive home. 10 hours. I had snacks, podcasts, and coffee. I figured I could power through the night. But halfway through Tennessee, somewhere around 11:45 p.m., my gas light flicked on. I didn't panic. There was an exit coming up for a place called Marlow, a tiny dot of a town just off the highway. I figured I'd fill up, maybe grab something to eat and keep moving. I took the exit. The gas station was open but had already locked the convenience store part. There was a sleepy-looking woman at the register behind bulletproof glass who barely glanced at me. When I asked if there was anywhere still open for food, she just shrugged and pointed across the street. "There's a Walmart. It's open all night. Only thing in this town that is." Sure enough, across the two-lane road was a squat, boxy building with the telltale blue and yellow Walmart sign. But it didn't look like any Walmart I'd ever been to. It was wrong, somehow. Smaller, more rectangular, like it had been crammed into a space that didn't belong to it. Still, I was hungry, and it was either that or vending machine peanuts. So I pulled in. There were only 3 cars in the lot, all spread out. The front doors glided open and I walked in. The air inside was cooler than I expected. Cold, actually. The kind of cold that raises goosebumps like walking into a freezer aisle. And the lights were too dim, like half of them were flickering or on low power. Still, it looked like a Walmart. The front had the usual self-checkout stations, impulse buy shelves filled with gum and energy drinks. To the right, the pharmacy area was dark and shuttered. The left was clothing. Straight ahead was grocery. But it wasn't laid out right. Everything was compressed. The aisles were tighter. The ceilings felt lower. The shelving looked older, like something you'd see in a Kmart that was on its last legs. The whole store gave off that "it used to be something else" vibe, like a ghost had moved in wearing someone else's skin. "Hello?" I called out, mostly just to hear a voice. No answer. But that wasn't too weird. It was midnight in a dying town. Probably just one or two night workers stocking shelves. I wandered slowly through the store trying to find something warm. The hot food section was dark and the deli was closed, but I managed to grab some beef jerky, trail mix, and a bottle of water. Not a feast, but better than nothing. I was heading toward the back, scanning for a bathroom, when I heard the sound. Footsteps. Not mine, not distant. Heavy, dragging ones. From the next aisle over. I stopped, held my breath. They were deliberate. One step, pause, another step. I peeked around the corner and saw a man wearing a full head horse mask, just standing there, staring in my direction. The kind of cheap plastic rubber mask you'd see in a Halloween aisle. Long snout, flared nostrils, black eyes. It startled me, of course. I even laughed nervously, half expecting him to say boo or something. "Okay, that's creepy," I said, more to myself than to him. He didn't respond. He didn't move. Then, very slowly, he turned and walked away. I told myself it was just some weird guy. Maybe a teenager screwing around. Maybe an employee who'd gone off script to entertain himself on a dead shift. Still, something itched under my skin. I grabbed the rest of what I needed and headed toward the front. The store still looked empty. I reached the self-checkout station and scanned my items, trying not to let my eyes drift too much. I didn't want to look like I was scared. I didn't want to be scared. But just as I was finishing, I caught movement. 2 more people, coming from behind one of the closed check lanes, both wearing horse masks. One of them was taller, with a black hoodie pulled over his head. The other had a torn flannel shirt. Neither spoke. They just stood there watching me. I swallowed hard. I turned and looked behind me, down the main aisle, and saw the first horse mask guy again, and next to him was another. That made 4 people in horse masks, all standing completely still. I took my receipt. I didn't run. I didn't even speed up. I walked, calm, even steps to the doors. As I reached them, I glanced back. They hadn't moved, but I could feel them watching. Outside, the night felt thicker. The air was damp, like just before a storm. My car sat alone, except there was a new car parked beside it. A dull silver sedan that hadn't been there before. Its windows were tinted dark, and the headlights were off. I kept my eyes forward and made a beeline to my driver's side door. Key out, unlock, slide in. As I did, my eyes flicked to the driver's seat of the silver car. It was empty. Then, population. A horse mask rose up from the seat. He had been crouched down. I screamed and turned the ignition with shaking hands. My headlights flared to life, illuminating the lot. I threw the car into reverse so fast it jerked, then peeled out of the parking space. In my rearview mirror, I saw the man in the horse mask step out of the car and just stand there watching me leave. I didn't stop for anything else. I drove the remaining 4.5 hours without taking a break. My hands were shaking the entire time, and I kept checking my mirrors, convinced the silver sedan would appear behind me on the interstate. But it didn't. I got home as the sun was rising. I parked in the driveway, locked every door, and sat on the couch in my living room until noon, just trying to calm my nerves. I never reported it. What could I even say? 4 guys in horse masks stood in a Walmart at midnight and stared at me. That's not illegal. That's just creepy. But here's the part that stays with me. A week later, I was at work, bored during a slow lunch hour, and decided to Google Marlow, Tennessee and its Walmart. But I couldn't find it. There was no Walmart in Marlow. The town existed, but there was only a Family Dollar, a gas station, and a hardware store. I even looked on satellite view. The lot where that Walmart had been? Empty. Just cracked asphalt and overgrown weeds. I don't know what I walked into that night, but I know it wasn't a Walmart. I wasn't supposed to work that Friday night, but James called out sick. Again. So there I was, July heat still clinging to my shirt as I clocked in at the Walmart off Highway 153 in Chattanooga. Graveyard shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It had been 2 months since I started working there, and while the pay wasn't much, the quiet of the night shift gave me room to breathe. I didn't have to deal with too many people, just pallets, shelves, and the hum of fluorescent lights. Back in April, I'd dropped out of community college. My mom was sick, rent was late, and I needed something, anything, to keep us from falling off the edge. Walmart was the first place that called back. Stocking shelves wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The pet care aisle became my home base. I could recite the price of every damn bag of kibble like it was scripture. By 11 p.m. that night, the store was mostly empty, just the usual drifters, some old guy in electronics pretending to compare flat screens, a young couple in baby clothes, and a random woman digging through clearance bins like they held buried treasure. It was that weird hour where everything feels too still. The music on the speakers kept playing like nothing was wrong, soft, annoying pop songs no one asked for. I was in aisle 18, pet food, back corner of the store. My cart was stacked with boxes of canned dog food, the metal cold to the touch. I was slicing open a box with my box cutter when I heard it. Slow footsteps. Not hurried like a customer looking for something. Slower, dragging. I turned. He didn't belong there. The man who came into the aisle looked like something out of a movie. Tall, gaunt, with a gray hoodie that looked torn at the shoulder, and jeans stained with something dark. His shoes were beat-up Converse, one of the laces trailing behind like he didn't care. I figured he was homeless or maybe just high. That happened more often than people wanted to admit. We were open late, and some folks just wandered in from the streets to get cool air or stir up trouble. He didn't say anything at first, just walked halfway into the aisle, then stopped and looked at me, and kept looking. I cleared my throat. "Can I help you find something, man?" He tilted his head like a confused animal. There was a twitch in his cheek. He raised a hand like he was about to point at something, but didn't. Then low, almost a whisper, "I don't like you." I blinked. Excuse me?" His face shifted, like a mask sliding into something more aggressive. His lip curled and he just stood there, breathing heavy. Then without another word, he turned the corner and walked into the next aisle. Something about him made my chest tighten. I waited for a second, listening. Nothing. Tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just unstable. People had breakdowns in stores all the time. Last month, a woman screamed at the ceiling for 20 minutes before security got her to leave. I went back to work. A minute passed, then another. Out the corner of my eye, I saw it. His face. Just peeking around the corner of the aisle. Watching me. Not moving. Not blinking. Just staring. I felt a chill climb up the back of my neck. I tried to act like I didn't see him, reached into the box of Alpo cans and lined them up, but I could feel his eyes. The silence grew heavy, like the air was thickening around me. I muttered, "What the hell is this guy doing?" Then, crash. A whole row of cat treats flew off the shelf behind me. It wasn't a small nudge. It was like someone slammed their arm against the rack from the other side. Pouches hit the floor, plastic snapping. I stepped back fast, nearly dropping the box cutter. "Hey!" I shouted toward the other side of the shelves. "Get what you need and get out, all right?" There was no response. Then, in that same low voice, he said, "Why don't you come around here?" I froze. He said it again, louder, meaner. "Come around here. I want to see your face." I didn't move, didn't say anything. I just picked up the pouches, heart thudding, pretending everything was normal. But my hands were shaking. I was already scanning my brain for where security was. Problem was, night shift security usually hung out near the front. We only had one guy on duty, Donnie, and he liked to nap in the camera room unless someone called him. The man didn't say anything else, but I knew he was still there. Then I heard more voices, more footsteps. For a second I thought maybe he wasn't alone. But it wasn't more strangers. It was cops, blue uniforms, flashlights, a dozen boot steps echoing down the tile. I peeked over the aisle and saw 3 officers wrestling the man down near Seasonal, zip-tying his hands. I stood there stunned, watching. One of them, young, maybe early 30s, walked over to me. "You okay?" he asked, panting a little from the scuffle. I nodded slowly. What the hell was that? He exhaled through his nose and looked back toward the man. We've been tracking him for an hour. Attacked a customer at a diner off Brainerd Road. Random assault. Then he bolted. Some clerk over there recognized him and called it in. I stared at the empty space where the man had stood. "He was just watching me," I said quietly. The officer nodded. "Yeah." Looked like he was gearing up to do it again. After they took him out in cuffs, things didn't just go back to normal. I was told to sit in the back office while they reviewed security footage. My manager, Angela, mid-40s, always looked like she hated her job, brought me a bottle of water and sat across from me. "You sure you're all right?" she asked. I nodded, but I didn't feel all right. I felt watched. Even though he was gone, I could still feel his eyes on me, like they'd burned into my skin. The police had more questions. Name, address. What did he say to me? Did he touch me? No, he didn't. He just stood there, talking crazy, breathing like he was already worked up. "We don't think he was armed," the officer said, "but we won't know for sure until we process everything." That night, they let me clock out early. Said I could take the next shift off too if I wanted. When I walked out of the store at 1:46 a.m., the parking lot was empty, except for a single police cruiser and a cleaning crew van. I stood there for a second, looking at the rows of parked carts under the harsh yellow lights. Silent. Still. The kind of quiet that makes you feel exposed. I walked to my car, hands in my pockets, eyes scanning everything. That's when I noticed something. On my windshield, tucked beneath the wiper, was a folded receipt. I thought maybe it was trash. But when I pulled it out and flipped it over, my chest went cold. On the back, written in shaky all-caps pencil, were 3 words: "You'll see me." No name, no phone number, just that. I looked around fast, nothing but shadows. I even opened the back seat of my car before getting in, just to be sure. I didn't sleep much that morning, or the next night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, half-shadowed, twitching, watching me. The police said they never found anything dangerous on him. No weapon, no drugs, just a broken cell phone and a crumpled photo of a dog that looked like it hadn't been alive in years. They held him for a psychiatric evaluation, but I never heard what happened after that. A week later, I was back at work. Angela didn't bring it up. Neither did I, but I started parking under the streetlight closest to the cameras. Started keeping my box cutter clipped tighter. Started watching every face that walked through the door. Because the truth is, he didn't need a weapon. He just needed a second. And when you work overnights in a place like Walmart, the scariest part isn't what happens. It's knowing how close it came to happening. I wasn't always the kind of guy who'd scare easy. Working construction and driving trucks taught me to keep my head down, stay alert, and never panic. But something about that night, something about him, still messes with my head. Back in 2019, I was working for a roofing contractor just outside Harrison, Arkansas. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid decent, and I was saving up to move into a better apartment on the other side of town. Our days were long, often starting at 6 a.m. and going past 9 or 10 at night if the weather held. The job was tough, real physical, hauling materials, climbing steep angles, standing under the sun for hours, and by the time I clocked out, I'd feel like I got hit by a damn freight train. That night, I was finishing up a site cleanup at a residential job about 30 minutes from home. Everyone else had cleared out around 8, but I stayed behind to help the homeowner with some tarp work after a sudden wind kicked up. I didn't leave until close to 2 in the morning. I don't remember much of the drive, just that I was drifting. Not mentally, but physically. My eyes were trying to close every few seconds, and I started getting those mini blackouts, like you blink and don't even remember doing it. That's when I knew I had to pull over somewhere, fast. It was either that or end up wrapped around a telephone pole. There's a 24-hour Walmart supercenter right off the 65 bypass. I'd been there a handful of times, usually to grab work gloves or some cheap microwave meals. At that hour, I figured it'd be empty enough for me to just walk around a bit, shake off the sleep, maybe grab a Monster or one of those sketchy energy pills they keep near the checkout. I pulled in. Parking lot was mostly empty except for some scattered cars. A few rigs were parked off to the side, probably other guys like me trying to push through the night. I walked inside. The fluorescent lights hit me like a punch. There were a couple of cashiers up front chatting softly, one old man in line with cat food and someone sweeping near the automatic doors. The air smelled like plastic and lemon cleaner, cold, stale, but familiar. I started walking, slowly at first, then picking up a little pace. I didn't care where I went. Electronics, produce, shoes, it didn't matter. I just needed my legs moving, blood circulating. After maybe 15 minutes, I felt a little less foggy. My body was still aching, but at least my head wasn't dipping anymore. That's when I noticed him. At first, I didn't think much of it, just a tall guy in a brown jacket about 3 aisles back. Looked like one of those turtleneck things underneath, too. Weird outfit for that time of night, but hey, people are weird. I turned down the pet supplies aisle, and after a few seconds, I got that heavy feeling, like someone breathing down your neck. I glanced behind me. There he was, less than 5 feet away, just standing there. Not even pretending to look at merchandise, just staring. "Everything all right?" I asked, trying not to sound nervous. No reply. Just a blank face, dark eyes, pale skin, almost no emotion at all. Then he turned on his heel and walked away without a word, slipping into the cleaning products aisle. Now, I've dealt with my share of drunk weirdos and strung-out customers. This didn't feel like that. This was different, calculated, cold. I shook it off and figured I'd cut my walk short. I grabbed a can of Rain energy drink from the cooler and made my way to the front. But halfway there, bam, there he was again. This time, coming out from between the toy aisles, heading straight for me. I stopped dead and squared up a little. "Hey man, you following me?" I asked, voice low but firm. Nothing. Not a word. He stopped again, maybe 10 feet away, looked at me like I was furniture, then veered off toward the frozen food section. Now, I don't scare easy, but that was enough for me. I went straight to checkout. The lady behind the counter asked if I found everything okay, and I just nodded. Didn't want to start nothing. "Y'all got cameras, right?" I asked casually. "Sure do," she said, scanning my drink. "Why?" "Just some strange guy hanging around. Gave me the creeps, that's all." She raised her eyebrows but didn't say much more. I figured if he was still inside, he could stay there. I just wanted to get in my truck and get home. I stepped outside into the night. It was quiet. Too quiet. Even the wind had gone still. I walked across the parking lot toward my old Ford, and that's when I felt it again, that crawling sensation across my spine. I stopped halfway to my truck, looked around. No sign of him. I got in, locked the doors immediately, and started the engine. As I pulled out of the lot, I glanced in my mirrors every few seconds. No one followed. The guy wasn't outside, just shadows and cars and silence. By the time I got home, I was too wired to sleep. Energy drink or adrenaline, I don't know. I stripped down and collapsed in bed, but my heart wouldn't settle. I stared at the ceiling, listening to every little sound outside my window. Eventually, I dozed off. But about an hour later, I woke up to the low growl of an engine outside. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but it kept going. Steady, loud, like someone wasn't planning on going anywhere. I sat up, wiped the crust from my eyes, and peeked out through the blinds. There was a truck idling right in front of my apartment. But it wasn't just a truck. He was inside. The man. Same brown jacket. Same cold face. Sitting perfectly still in the driver's seat, staring right at my window. I froze. My heart started hammering. I didn't move, didn't blink, just stared back. And then, like he knew I'd seen him, the guy floored it. Tires screeched, engine howled, and the truck disappeared into the night. I stood there for minutes, maybe more, unable to process what just happened. Who the hell was he? How did he know where I lived? Why didn't he do anything, just watch? The police didn't help much the next morning. I filed a report, sure, but all I could say was creepy guy in a truck. No plate, no name, no crime. Nothing ever came of it. And the worst part, I never saw him again. But that's what keeps me up at night, even now. Because sometimes, not knowing is way worse than any answer. I never thought working the overnight shift at Walmart would lead me to a moment where I'd be hiding under my own bed, phone in hand, texting 911, while some lunatic banged on my bedroom window. Backtrack. Let me explain how I got here. I'm Marcus, 28 years old, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Grew up pretty normal. Football in high school, part-time job at a car wash, nothing wild. I went to community college for a bit, never finished. I didn't really have some big dream, I just wanted to work, pay my bills, and keep life simple. But life has a way of throwing shit at you. A few years back, my mom got sick. Real sick. Cancer. She didn't make it. After she passed, I moved back home with my dad. We weren't close, but rent was expensive and grief had a way of making the silence between us tolerable. I needed work, something stable. Walmart was hiring. Night shift. Stocking shelves. It was a gig. I took it. It was supposed to be temporary, just to help get me back on my feet. At first, I didn't mind it. Less customer interaction. Fewer supervisors breathing down your neck. It had this rhythm. Empty aisles, soft hum of fluorescent lights, the steady beeping of scanners. But after a couple months, it started to wear on me. The fluorescent buzz started sounding like static. The silence stopped being peaceful and became hollow. There were only 5 of us on the overnight crew. Tyrell, mid-30s, funny as hell, used to work security in Cleveland. Danielle, single mom, early 40s, worked harder than anyone I've ever met. Joey, 19, fresh out of high school, kinda lazy but had a good heart. Mr. Keller, the overnight manager, always wore a tie like he was running for office. And me, the quiet one who kept to himself. We stocked shelves, cleaned up spills, and occasionally dealt with drunk late-night shoppers trying to find just one more bottle of wine they swore they'd seen in this aisle last week. Everything changed on a Thursday night. It was around 3:17 a.m. We'd just taken our break in the break room, instant noodles and vending machine coffee. Tyrell was telling this story about a raccoon that got into the receiving bay. We were all laughing when the PA system cracked. A voice came through. Not Mr. Keller, not anyone I recognized, just, "Help me." That was it. One whisper. It came from inside the store. We all looked at each other. Danielle thought maybe someone got in after closing. Keller swore it was a prank. Joey said it sounded like a kid. We checked the cameras. Nothing. No movement in the aisles. The entrance was locked. Receiving bay, shut. I don't know what it was, but something shifted in me that night. Like someone flipped a switch in my gut. You ever feel watched even when you're alone? Keller told us to get back to work. Said it must have been a glitch. He even joked about it. Maybe it's a ghost of rollback prices. But that voice wasn't funny. The rest of the night dragged. I was assigned to aisle 17 cleaning products. I had just opened a new box of bleach bottles when I heard it again. "Help me." Right behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Just rows of detergent and disinfectant. I called out, "Hello?" Thinking maybe someone was fucking with me. But no one answered. Then I saw something on the shelf. A child's handprint. Small, greasy. Right on a bottle of Pine Sol. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, looked again. It was gone. I told Keller. He rolled his eyes and said I needed sleep. Maybe I did. But then the next night, Tyrell didn't show up. No call, no text, just gone. We found out later his car was still in the parking lot. Doors locked, phone inside. Cops came, did a quick sweep, found nothing. Said maybe he walked off, but that made no sense. Tyrell was solid, reliable. He wouldn't just leave like that. A week later, Danielle quit. Said she had a family emergency, but I saw her face the night before, pale, shaking. She kept saying she saw a little girl by the cleaning aisle. She said the girl was humming, said she followed her for 5 minutes, only to turn the corner and find nobody there. By now I was losing sleep. The night shifts turned heavy. The silence felt loaded, like something was waiting to be heard. Then it happened to me. 2 nights after Danielle left, I got a DM on Instagram. Username, now 17 hold. No profile picture, no followers, just following me. There was one post, a blurry picture. Looked like it was taken through a glass window, my bedroom window. I thought it was a prank. Maybe Joey was messing around. I messaged, very funny, but this is creepy, man. Seen. No reply. I blocked the account, told Keller about it. He shrugged it off. The next night, while I was in aisle 17 again, the power flickered. Not once, not twice. It stayed out for about 15 seconds, enough time to hear footsteps, running, and a whisper. Not over the PA, right next to me. I see you now. I dropped everything and ran to the front. Keller thought I was losing it. I asked to switch aisles. He told me I was being dramatic. That night, when I got home, another DM. Different account. Username, Come Closer 483. Photo, my driveway. Another, my bedroom window. Again. But this time I was in the picture, sitting on my bed. I called the cops, filed a report. They said unless the person tried to enter or physically threatened me, there wasn't much they could do. So I waited, stayed up, slept with a bat, left the lights off, and then I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. I looked. Silhouette, outside my window. Then, bang. So hard it cracked the glass. I ran. Not to my dad. He wasn't home. I ran into the bathroom, locked the door, and called 911. Cops came. Did a full sweep. Nobody found. But a single piece of paper was under my window. Just 2 words, scrawled in red marker. Aisle 17. They traced the IP address of the Instagram accounts. It was Joey. Yeah. The lazy, quiet 19-year-old. The one who always asked for the cleaning aisle. The one who joked too much but smiled too little. Turns out he'd been staying in the Walmart after hours. Hiding, watching, recording. He had cameras planted in the store, in the break room, even near the bathrooms. He told the police he wanted to see how far he could go before someone noticed. He said the voice over the PA was just fun. He said Tyrell ran off after Joey followed him home one night. They never found Tyrell. Joey is behind bars now, charged with stalking, harassment, attempted break-in, and possibly more if they can link him to Tyrell's disappearance. But that doesn't make it better. Sometimes, late at night when I'm trying to sleep, I hear that voice. Not in my head, not in my memory. On my phone. A voicemail from an unknown number. Help me. Same whisper. Same chill. I never worked a night shift again, and I never went back to Walmart. Not even for a gallon of milk.